Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Council has been really busy this afternoon with a variety of decision-making pieces that has brought us over time. So appreciate your patience. And welcome to the City of Waterloo Council meeting as we continue on Monday, October the 21st. And I'm just going to start with a territorial acknowledgement and a moment of reflection. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather, land on which we're broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinook people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. At the beginning of this council meeting, we also pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, council. Seeing none. There's approval of minutes from the September 16th and 23rd, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Vasek. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Council, we have a consent motion. Did anyone want to remove anything from consent? Councillor Rowe?
I just have a question about the grant application process.
Do you want it pulled? Is it a lot of questions or is it one simple question?
It's just one question.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay. If I could ask question of staff. Excuse me, Kevin, I believe, is here. One second. I just wanted to actually ask about the stream, the grant that will allow for cooling systems in both arenas at the AMCC. And I'm just curious, like if the grant is unsuccessful, can these systems be added at a later date with the future need for cooling centers in mind with the climate crisis?
Yes, through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Rowe. So we see that as a really important feature of this facility going forward, the cooling, both for programming use, but also for a cooling center, as you note. So if unsuccessful, we would still very much be looking to bring that piece as part of the major project happening at AMCC, but looking to utilize our existing budgets that we have access to. So that is something we are committed to and looking to bring online, just working through the funding and knowing that this grant would allow it. I think that's sort of our first priority, is to try to get the grant funding to allow that to happen. But if not, we'll look at other means to try to bring that online.
Great, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
With that, did you want to move the consent agenda? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. So we're on to item 8, which there's no items removed from consent, and staff reports. So with regard to the license agreement, item 9A, I understand that Jillian's here, as is the executive director for the skating club, in case there's any questions on this item. Is there any questions on this item? Is there someone interested to move this? Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Roach. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. We're on to the item 9B, affordable housing grant for the first call of applications, and Tanya's here. So you just had a few opening remarks. Tanya, go ahead, please.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, council, staff, and all those that are here in person or watching virtually. I am thrilled, excited. There's just words not to say how proud I am to be able to share with you the results of our successful first call for applications under our Affordable Rental Housing Grant Program, which was launched this spring and has resulted in the awarding of 2 grants. First grant has been awarded as Supportive Housing of Waterloo, who are the recipient of a $325,000 grant to retain professionals in order to get a zoning and site plan compliance for them to be able to build a 6-story addition comprised of 31 affordable housing units at their existing building at 144 Herb Street East, which will be tailored towards low-income seniors. The second grant that has been awarded to the Central Ontario Cooperative Housing Federation in the amount of $50,000 for them to be able to undertake a study to look at opportunities for infill within 6 existing co-ops at the city of Waterloo, looking to advance potentially in the future upwards of 50 affordable housing units, 1 and 2 bedroom units, in order to free up overhoused existing 3 and 4 bedroom units. Wanted to highlight here that the funding for this grant program, which makes available capital grants to not-for-profit organizations building affordable housing, much needed affordable housing in our community, has primarily come from former Section 37 contribution agreements. To be clear, this funding for the program has not come from the Housing Accelerator Fund grant that was awarded earlier this year. We have been were tremendously successful in getting former height and density bonusing contributions for much needed community benefits in our community under the former Section 37 of the Planning Act. With the remaining $725,000 that's available in the program, we are anticipating to launch a second call for applications in this upcoming spring, noting that these grants will help to bring even more affordable housing units in the city. As you can imagine, a capital grant program such as this takes a lot of effort and resources, and I would like to especially give recognition to planning management, finance staff, legal services staff, communication staff, and staff from our READY team who have been instrumental in our process in awarding these 2 grants. So thank you very much. I'm happy to receive any comments or to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, and thank you to you and your staff for all the work you did putting this together and reviewing the applications. Questions, Council? Mayor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair Freeman, and thank you very much, Tanya, and to everyone involved with this process. It is really exciting, and thrilled to hear that Show is one of the early applicants and successful applicants, as well as some of our local co-ops, and they're working cooperatively, which is not a surprise, I guess. My question is, why are we waiting until spring for another intake? And were you expecting, we've had 2 really great 2 sort of plus organizations that are receiving this funding, and they're going to, those are great, but I was just wondering if there were others that applied and didn't quite meet the criteria, or others maybe that need some support, or were people aware enough of this program?
Through the chair to Mayor McCabe, great questions. So the reason we're anticipating to issue the second call for applications in the spring is currently, as noted in the report, we are focused on executing the necessary contribution agreements with Show and the Central Ontario Cooperative Housing Federation, as well as there are certain administrative requirements that we are focused on and need to advance, and as well as to advance the funds. So right now, that's where our energy is focused on. As part of our grant program this past spring, we did have 2 submissions, and both submissions were successful. We did spend a lot of efforts to communicate, and I know several people around the table also helped to communicate that, as well as on Engage, as well as I know I reached out to the region to be able to ask them to share communications, as they have a much broader list than we do. So I think we had a very successful communications campaign. In terms of also why next spring is to undertake and launch a call for application, as I had mentioned, takes a significant amount of resources and takes some time. And so we felt we would be ready in the spring In addition, at this time, I am not aware of any organizations who would be ready to apply. And so we want to make sure that when we do launch the next call for applications, that we do have a submission or a couple of submissions, hopefully, that will be also successful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask a follow-up? Do you know, I'm curious about the co-op one particularly, because in some conversations I've had over the past few months to a year with some of our co-op board members, like they had identified that, you know, they've got a really great asset there, but and they're kind of wondering how to really leverage it to build certainly more than 50. So will this study help them kind of unpack what that might look like? Like the way some of them had put it to me is that, you know, they've got this asset, most often it's, they don't have a mortgage, so they have some good capacity in terms of like leveraging their asset, and they would like to either build, like intensify their own, build up, buy other properties. So is this study that they're going to go through, is that going to be kind of getting at how they can do this work? Or do you have a sense of that at this point?
Yeah. Through the chair to Mayor McCabe, absolutely. So the $50,000 that has been awarded to the Central Ontario Cooperative Housing Federation is for them to retain professional services for a consultant to undertake that work, examining the existing co-ops to see what opportunities there are in existing buildings, opportunities for infill on existing sites, as well as for them to undertake an analysis in terms of the financial viability and whatnot. So that is part of the study that is going to be undertaken with the grant that they have been awarded through this program.
Okay, that is really good news. Can I ask one more quick question? Was just, do you know if the current units that Show is working on at 144, are those units going to count towards our Building Faster Fund? Do we know that, or are they at the point where they can count towards our total?
Through the chair to Mayor McCabe, so the existing 25 units at 144 Herb Street East, because they are existing, I don't believe that they would count towards our half-grant affordable. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Those would be counted as part of our Housing Accelerator Fund building permits. Yes. Thank you.
Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Thank you for the report and the presentation. I'm delighted to see all of it moving forward as well. Mayor's comment prompted a question from me regarding infill sites in our existing co-ops. There is one in my ward who had made an application for an infill building, which council did approve. However, what the downfall of it, continuing on, my understanding is that Canadian Housing and Mortgage didn't come through with their portion of it. So my question is, with the study, are you going to be involving Canadian Housing and Mortgaging? Because there's no point in us moving forward with things if that's going to be a stumbling block at the end for the co-ops, or even for any of the not-for-profit housing operators as well.
Through the chair to Councillor Hammer, that's a great question. So my understanding, based off of the submission that was advanced from Central Ontario Cooperative Housing Federation, is part of the reason for the study is it is their intent to be able to make a subsequent submission to Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation and to understand what all the requirements and analysis that would be undertaken. So that is my understanding from the submission materials they provided.
That's good, and actually, the co-op that is in my ward is part of the collaborative, so they would know very well that that's a stumbling block. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm just wondering, in the report, it talks about streamlining the application process, and so I'm just curious what sort of feedback you were able to glean, and were there any specific priorities emerged during the application process?
Through the chair to Councillor Wright. So as we're still in the process, once we have the executed contribution agreements, the grants have been advanced, it is my intention then to reach out both to the successful applicants as well as those who had reached out previously with an inquiry about our program, to circulate for their comments and suggestions about how we can improve and or streamline our program.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there someone who would like to move this? Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Mayor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We're on to the 2024 surplus deficit projection. And I just wanted to point out to council that this is indeed just a projection, that we still have several months to go at the end of the year. And if there's anything to glean from this, I would suggest to you that staff have been good stewards of the resources we've allocated to them so far. When you look at the $100 million budget, we're pretty tight to budget. So I think that's kind of some of the comments that I wanted to make, but of course, Mr. Witzel's here if anyone has any other comments. Did you want to add a bit to the opening remarks, Brad?
Thank you, Chair Freeman. Yeah, I'll just expand on that, but some duplication there. So good afternoon, Chair Freeman, Mayor, members of council. So Michael and I are here today to provide an update on our 2024 surplus deficit projections. So this is our second update report for 2024. We were here in June as well. And we've seen some positive changes since that time, but very similar projections, and that staff will return by May of 2025 with our final 2024 surplus deficit figures after our annual audit process is completed. I just want to say quick thanks to all the directors and the financial planning team for their work in preparing these projections and then their ongoing management of their respective operating budgets. Overall, we're projecting a net tax base surplus of 0.8 million. So as Councillor Freeman alluded to, for context, our 2024 approved net tax base operating budget is 100,673,000. So this projected surplus is less than 1%, or alternatively, we're 99% accurate. As outlined in the report, staff will continue to monitor actuals versus budget on a monthly basis, and will consider adding sustainable budget opportunities and or budgeting for operational pressures as part of future budgets. This accuracy also applies to our enterprise areas, where we have some enterprises that are forecasting a surplus and some enterprises that are forecasting a deficit. Both of these surpluses will be allocated to the enterprise reserves, and deficits will be covered by the enterprise reserves with no tax base impact. City Utilities is our largest enterprise with a 2024 budget of approximately 70 million. So when you see that forecasted 1.1 million deficit within City Utilities for the three sections, again, that's only 1.5% over the budget. And we would just look at that deficit in context of the previous years where City Utilities has had some surpluses, which has been allocated to their reserves. So it kind of balances out within those enterprises year over year. So we are here to answer any questions that council might have. But otherwise, yeah, the 2024 surplus deficit projections are very much in line with budget and aligned with prior year results in many cases. So thank you.
Questions, council? Councillor Bodley. Sorry, I was going to say Councillor Royce, but
It's all good.
we'll stick with last names for
Thank-
now.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Freeman. During the budget process, council had directed staff to look at capital projects and how they were coming in as compared to how tenders were coming in as compared to budgets. And I recognize that that's not a part of the surplus deficit projection here, but I'm curious if maybe you can provide us with some insight as to how that's looking and any sort of potential adjustments that could be made based on how actuals are coming in.
Through Chair Freeman to Councillor Bodley, thank you for the question. So staff will be providing additional context as part of the 2025 budget confirmation report on this topic, as we had committed on budget day. But as a refresher, the 24 to 26 capital budget used an inflation rate of 6.18%. That was based on policy, and that is using the construction price index, non-residential for the Toronto area, Q3 to Q3. So the most recent data that we have, we had seen an increase of 7.5%. So that would actually increase our 5-year average to 6.61% on a 5-year average from a budgeting perspective. But when we look at the 6.6 versus the 6.2, there's not a very material change there. And actually what staff is seeing is that we are seeing some positive trends where construction tenders are coming in on budget or maybe even under budget. And so that's allowing us to maybe return some funding to those sources. But in terms of kind of making a budget change, we would probably suggest that it's a little premature at this point in time. We should probably continue to monitor this, because typically what will happen on these is that the unit prices will level off, and so we'll be in a good place from a budget perspective, but we're unlikely to see decreases. And so what we would see is hopefully some stable unit prices year over year versus some declining prices. That's what I would offer today, and we'll provide some additional context when we come forward, unless Commissioner Ormston or others would like to elaborate on that, but hopefully that's helpful context for today.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, did you want to move that, Councillor Bodley? Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? And that's also carried unanimously. Now we are on to item D, award of supply and installation of 2 splash pads. I have to comment to say that I am very excited this is finally getting built or at least getting closer to being constructed on each sides of the city. So thank you for bringing this forward. Is there any questions on this, Mayor McCabe?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just wondered about, we were just with GRAC doing an accessibility tour of one of our facilities, and just reflecting on the new, I know it's a new, Kids Ability has recently built a new playground, which is different than a splash pad, but I'm just wondering what accessibility features can be built into or are going to be built into these facilities.
Through the chair to Mayor McCabe. So both sites have accessibility features built into them. If it's the approach to the splash pad itself is at grade level. The bathroom facilities that are there will both be accessible bathroom facilities. There's complementary play structures that are at the site existing, so those will be existing facilities. So there may be some accessibility features that exist in those features, but those aren't being upgraded as part of the site. You'll see benches on the site. There's gazebos for shade. So there's quite a few accessibility features built into the design. I believe, and I'm going to have Annalie correct me, GRAC was consulted on both designs, and I believe gave their blessing, correct statement? Yes. Yeah.
Anticipated my follow-up question was GRAC or our accessibility coordinator involved with some of the design, so really great to hear that. Thanks very much.
If I can just add a comment, thank you through you, to the mayor. I can attest that the discussion at GRAC was very lively on the splash pads. There was a lot of good interest and appreciation actually that they were being asked. They typically don't get asked for something like that. So lots of kudos to Waterloo staff for bringing it forward. It was a good discussion.
And Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just wondering if you can comment. Some weeks ago we talked about a grant regarding tree planting, and I'm just wondering whether, in the full interest of making sure that we have fantastic shade and cooling through these splash pads, will we be, and I saw from the drawings that there are some trees planted, but is there an opportunity to enhance tree planting in these zones if they become sort of priority cooling areas?
Through the chair to Councillor Wright. So yeah, as you noted, both plans there's a detailed landscape planting plan that will call for trees to be planted on the site. In addition to that, there is the 2 shade structures. So really, to answer your question, can we enhance the planting in the area? Specifically through the 2 projects as they've been tendered, there'll be tendered and delivered as they were. But absolutely, there would be an opportunity for our in-house forestry staff, or if we're successful with the FCM grant, to complement planting in those areas in particular.
Any other questions? Sorry? It's moved by Mayor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Bodley. All those in favor? My hand is held high. I'm very excited. So we've done great, Council. It's 4:45, and we're going to break now for our and reconvene at 6:30 this evening. I didn't have to cut